50 years ago, in the shadow of a national emergency, two words were quietly inserted into the preamble of India's most sacred political document, the Constitution. Not through debate, not through consensus, but by brute political force. These words were socialist and secular. Tonight, I say what millions think, but few dare to voice. It's time that we remove these two words. I'm Manoranjana, and this is The Last Word. Let's start with the basics. Today, we are talking about the preamble of the Indian Constitution, which Nani Palkhiwala aptly described as the identity card of the Indian Constitution. The original preamble to the Constitution of India did not include the words secular or socialist in the preamble. The document merely described the Indian state sovereign democratic republic, not a socialist one, and neither a secular one. These two words were added during the darkest hour of our republic, the emergency of 1975, when Indira Gandhi suspended civil liberties, jailed opponents, muzzled the press, and amended the constitution to consolidate her power. You can check out our special episode on the 50th anniversary of the emergency and K.N. Gupta's memoir, Ink, Saffron and Freedom, by clicking on the link on the top right corner of your screen to learn more about this dark chapter of India's history. The 42nd Amendment, often called the Mini Constitution, introduced terms socialist and secular into our preamble, not to elevate democracy, but to bend it. This wasn't a reform, it was an imposition. Let's talk about the first word, secular. What has this word meant in practice over the last 5 decades? It has meant that the state bends over backwards to protect the sensitivities of religious minorities while brushing aside the beliefs and practices of the Hindu majority. It has meant that temples are controlled by state governments while churches and mosques remain autonomous. It has meant that the moment a Hindu asserts civilizational identity, whether through festivals, customs, or speech, they are branded as communal. But when others do the same, it's called their culture. This is definitely not secularism. It's selective appeasement. Worse, the word has become a legal shield, a way to strike down reforms in Hindu society while insulating minority practices from judicial scrutiny. Triple Talaq took years to outlaw, but reforming temple entry or priesthood? Immediate outrage, judicial activism, and media hysteria. What kind of secularism are we talking about? Where one community's reform is progress and another one's reform is called interference? And to those who say removing secular threatens minorities, that's fear-mongering. Religious freedom is already guaranteed under Articles 25 to 28 of the Constitution. The word secular in the preamble didn't protect minorities. Our laws and civilizational values did. Even without that word, we remained a nation where mosques, churches, temples, and gurdwaras coexisted, and that's never going to change. Now let's move on to the other word, socialist, a word rooted not in Indian tradition, but in Nehruvian Marxist ideology. Socialism shackled India's economy for decades. It rewarded mediocrity, punished enterprise, and bloated the bureaucracy. It created a license Raj that starved growth and fed corruption. In the name of socialism, public sector behemoths were protected even when they failed. Wealth creation was treated with suspicion, and welfare became a vote bank instrument, not a tool for dignity. India's economic resurgence began the moment we distanced ourselves from socialist dogma in the 1990s. And yet, the word remains in our preamble, a fossil from a failed era, preserved only for ideological symbolism. Well, it's time we let it go. But let's not be naive. These words are not just accidents of history. They have been weaponized, especially the word secular. In the name of secularism, minority-first policies have been justified, from scholarships in schools and colleges to separate civil codes. In the name of secularism, the majority community is told to keep its faith indoors. This is definitely not equality. This is institutionalized imbalance. And increasingly, it is tearing the Hindu society apart. Because when caste divisions are amplified in the name of social justice, and when secular means blind accommodation of any demand so long as it's not Hindu, then the unity of Sanatan Dharma is under siege. The caste system which reformers like Swami Vivekananda and Dr. Ambedkar sought to heal from within is now being exploited as a political wedge. Secularism has become a cover for this divide and rule strategy. The truth is, Hindu society is one, not despite caste, but through it. A spiritual continuum that recognizes differences but not discrimination. It is only when state power intervenes with the intent to fragment in the name of representation or reform that frictions arise. The global agenda is also very clear. They want to break Hindu unity, elevate caste above culture, encourage sectarianism within the fold. And what better tools than secular and socialist words, which are imported concepts with colonial and communist roots. Let's dial back the clock for a moment and look at what our political climate looked like when these words were inserted into the preamble. It was 1976. Indira Gandhi was ruling by decree. Opposition leaders were in jail. Parliament was a rubber stamp. Dissent was sedition. The 42nd Amendment was passed not with dialogue but with diktat. Atal Bihari Vajpayee and L.K. Advani were imprisoned. The RSS was banned. Newspapers were censored. And in that authoritarian fog, secular and socialist were added to the Constitution's preamble. This was definitely not India's soul. It was about Indira's survival. Yes, Indira Gandhi's personal survival. She needed to signal allegiance to the Soviet model. She needed to silence the rising Hindu voices. So she went ahead and vandalized the identity card of our Constitution, not with the people's mandate, but with the coercive machinery of the state. Let that history never be forgotten. Now, some say these words were harmless and just symbolic. If that is true, why are the defenders so afraid of removing them? Because they know symbols matter, especially when they are written into the soul of a republic. And right now, these symbols are out of sync with India's civilizational character. We are not anti-minority, but we are pro-truth. And the truth is, the Indian state has for too long ignored the grievances of its majority in the name of those outdated ideals. We've tolerated illegal encroachments, biased textbook histories, unequal laws, and media narratives that caricature Hindu voices as regressive and dangerous. This is not tolerance, it is erosion. It's time for a civilizational correction. India is a Hindu nation, not in the theocratic sense, but in the cultural sense. A nation rooted in Sanatan Dharma, open, plural, inclusive. And that is why Jews, Parsis, Buddhists, Jains, and now even persecuted Hindus from Pakistan and Bangladesh have found refuge with us. Because Hindu society is not defined by dogma, it's defined by dharma. And dharma does not need the word secular to coexist. It has done so for thousands of years. So let us not be blackmailed by colonial constructs and communist critiques. Let us trust the Indian people, all Indian people, to uphold pluralism without this crutch of foreign vocabulary. The call to remove secular and socialist is not a call to discriminate. It is a call to decolonize. It is a call to return the Constitution to its original spirit, the one that was envisioned by Ambedkar and the Constituent Assembly of India. Ambedkar never once called for a socialist state, nor did he endorse Western-style secularism. He wanted fraternity, not forced uniformity. He wanted liberty, not licensed hypocrisy. In the Constituent Assembly debates, he said, and I quote him, "What should be the policy of the state is a matter which should be decided by the people themselves, according to time and circumstances." So what does this tell us? That ideological flexibility was the intent of our leaders. Our Constitution was crafted to empower the people, not to cement one political doctrine. And that's the vision we must reclaim. To those who oppose this idea, I say, debate it and don't fear it. If these words truly reflect the will of the people, they will return through proper democratic means. But let them not be put without a test to us. Let Parliament debate. Let the people decide. A constitution is not a museum artifact. It is a living document, and every generation has the right and the duty to align it with truth. Today, that truth is the words secular and socialist do not represent India. They represent a hijacked moment in Indian history, a moment we are finally ready to move beyond. This is not a rejection of harmony, it is a renewal of honesty. And yes, the world will criticize, Western media will howl, their think tanks will cry majoritarianism. But that's because they fear a self-aware Hindu society, one that is united, unapologetic, and rising. And that fear is our opportunity. This was the last word. And if the preamble is to mean anything again, then it must reflect who we are, not who we were forced to become. Thank you, and Jai Bharat.